Yauts, nuch abti, giakalint imotsi giach, haisliduch nugwa. Hello, I'm called Ab. I originate from Kitimat Village, and I'm Haisla. And what I wanted to do here was talk about the appendices that are in a document called uiksisda, which is a dictionary that was created by Emmon Bach. And he released that in 2006. So I actually wanted to go through the appendices because there's a lot of information there that talks about how the Haisla language actually works. And this is something that's been really helpful to me personally as a Haisla learner. And I wanted to walk through it with you guys, if you haven't seen it before. And hopefully it'll start to make more sense to you, because he really goes in depth as to how the language works. And in my experience as a language learner, not just with Haisla, but with other languages, if you want to really learn a language, you need to learn how it works. And reading through Emmon Bach's work, he not only recorded our language, but he also talked a lot about the mechanics behind the language and described how it worked. And to me, that is something that made him unique. And he did it in a way that is kind of user-friendly. He didn't use a lot of linguistic terminology, so it's a little bit easier for people like myself who are not trained linguists to understand. And I think since this has been really helpful to me, it's also going to be really helpful to anybody else who is curious about the Haisla language. It's a really good starting point to learn how the language actually works, because as I said before, if you really want to learn Haisla, you need to learn how it works. And Emmon Bach did a really good job of explaining that. He did that many times through a lot of different projects, a lot of documents that he created, talked a lot about the mechanics of the language, how it all worked. So I have the document here. I'm going to switch to that. So I'm just going to quickly do something here on my software, just to give me something so that I can see myself. Because when I click away from this, I have my my software open, my broadcasting software. So I'm just trying to set it up so that I can actually see it while I'm switching between different windows. Preview scaling. Add source. I think I have to go to, I apologize, I should have set this up beforehand. It's been months since I actually used this program, so I'm kind of having to learn it all over again, which tends to happen. I can't find it. I'm just going to go. And so I'm not going to be able to see myself, but that should be okay. So this begins on, what page actually is this? On page 190. So this is the back of the dictionary. So section 1 here is making Haisla sentences. And he says here, we can't include a whole grammar or set of lessons in this dictionary, but we can give a very short sketch and give some of the commonest parts of the grammar of the language to help you see how the words in the book are used in making connected sentences. So he says the words in the book, he means this dictionary that we're looking at right now. So one thing I want to mention also is that another really helpful thing to learning languages is, like, you can learn single words and that'll help to a certain extent, But what's going to help you more is learning how words are used in context. So learning a word and then learning it in a sentence. That's what's going to help you the most. That's what's helped me the most. I can create my own sentences in isla because I understand how words change when they're put into different contexts. So one thing that I can explain to you right off the bat here is that isla words are not really complete words when you get right down to it. Basically, a isla word that you'll find in a dictionary is what I call a base word. And in order to use that word in different contexts, you'll have to change it in some way. And that's something you don't really learn from dictionaries. This is something that goes beyond just looking at single words. There's something called morphology, and that's basically when parts of words change when they're surrounded by other words. So that's a very common thing that happens in isla. That's a common feature, is that one word will change the word structure of another word. That's something that happens a lot in the isla language. So if you learn one word out of context, you're not really going to understand how to change that word when you're putting it into different contexts. So that's something that he's going to be talking about here in these appendices. So he goes on to say, here is a commonly heard isla interchange. So he starts off by saying, si eich gwela sus ha, or si eich gwela sus sa. So I should also point out that there are some typos in this document. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to copy and paste this into a Word document. And, this is something else I should have set up beforehand. I forgot that I had to reset my computer before I could get things going here. And I had all this set up before, but I forgot that everything had reset once I restarted my computer. So I also don't have my keyboard activated. So again, this was something that would have been helpful beforehand. So there's something missing here, and this is a small raised W. And also, when it comes to using this in a sentence, you could say susa, or you could say susha. Either way is fine. But it's basically, that's the word structure. And if we go back to the original document, so he says that si eich gwela susa means how are you? I would say that it would say something, it would translate more to something like, are you good? And something else that's not really mentioned right away, I think he mentions it later on, but I'll mention it here, is that this is a yes or no question. So I'll go back to my Word document and type that in. So I would say that this translates to, are you good? Yes or no. And then I'm just going to copy and paste the next line and work that into this document here. So there's a few things that I have to change here. So the next line is na eich gwelaskins. So you can see here, he has that small raised W. He didn't have it in the previous sentence. Something else that I'll mention is that Emmon Bach used capital letters. I don't at all. it creates a lot more problems when you introduce capital letters into the isla hybrid orthography. And something else that I added was an apostrophe, because that's basically the word structure. It's n, and you can imagine it being, oops, its word is making changes when I don't want them to. You can imagine it as kind of a silent E, which makes an sound. So sometimes you'll hear people say "na" like I do. That's my preferred way of pronouncing this word. Other times you'll hear "anna," but again, it comes down to personal preference, and I tend to leave out the E or the schwa. So when you do that, when you delete that E, you still have that apostrophe in front. So this is na or anna. And something else that's not mentioned here in the translation is that na means yes, because we're answering a yes or no question. So when somebody says si eich su sa, it doesn't just mean are you good. It means are you good, yes or no. So they're asking you a yes or no question, and they're expecting a yes or no answer in reply. So na eich gwalaskens means yes, I'm fine. So I'll switch back to the PDF document. And then he goes on to say a more literal translation of the first question might be this. So he's translating it exactly in the order that it would appear in Heisla. So he says, is good your condition or state of being? So this refers to the word order that we're seeing here. And so C is basically a question word, and it's kind of like the default form of it. You might hear sus, you might hear sun, but basically C is kind of the default form of this question word, and it basically is something you would use if you're not going to change it to sun or sus, which refers to like the person that you're talking about. Eich is good, and then gwala means like your condition or state of being. And then this us means you. So gwelas means condition, state of being. This us means you. So it's this here, you or your. And then the ah or ha is yes or no. So if you translate this in the most literal sense, in Heisler word order, it would read more like this. Is good your condition, state of being, yes or no? And then the answer, which we see up here, na eich gwalaskens, means yes, good my condition, or yes, I'm good. So that's a pretty good breakdown of a pretty common interaction that you might hear in Heisler. So that's a nice breakdown of that, and it gives you an idea of how the words change when you put them into different contexts. So carrying on here, he says, these sentences illustrate a few key points of the language. Number one, the order of the words is different from English, which we can see here, where we have C starting off, which is the question word, which is kind of like Heisla, or kind of like English where you would say is. But then you see a difference here where you see eich, which is good. So this would be like is good, condition your, yes or no. So that's a different word order than what we would see in English. In isla, words that correspond to verbs and helping words come first. That's a general statement. Usually that's what happens. Verbs will come first. So isla is a VSO language. So if I switch back to my Word document here, VSO means verb, subject, object. And again, this is the general word structure that you'll see. It's not always going to be like this, but most of the time you'll see VSO. And this is very different from English, which is SVO, which is subject, verb, object. So this is a big difference between isla and English. So that's something else that is really going to help you in your understanding when you're learning isla, because if you come into learning isla expecting it to work the way English does, you're going to be confused because we're seeing a big difference right away in the word structure. So going back to the document here, the second point, words can have a lot more packed into them in isla than in English. So speaking and understanding isla requires knowing a lot of endings and other modifications to words. The examples here show this. So he has the word guelas, and then he has the suffix us, which means, so us means your. So this us is a suffix, and it means your. And then guelas means condition. And then we have a different form of this word here, where we have guelas, but then we have gins. So gins means my or mine, and then guelas means condition. So guelasus means your condition. Guelas gins means your condition, or my condition. Guelasus, your condition. Guelas gins, my condition. So that's what he's talking about there. Whenever you see a little dash in front of a part of a word, that means it's a suffix. That suffix means it needs to be added to another word. It can't be used by itself. So you can't just say us. It has to be guelasus. So it's one word. Guelas gins is one word. But that gins is a suffix that not only means it's mine, but it's close to me. This us means it's yours, but it's away from, or it's close to you at the time that I'm talking to you. So us means yours and it's close to you. Gins means mine and it's close to me. So that's what he's talking about there. There's a lot of meaning in these very small suffixes, very short words, also referred to as morphemes. So what I was talking about before, morphology, that refers to morphemes, which are parts of words. So gins is a suffix, which is also a morpheme in more linguistic terminology, and it's added to guelas. Us is a morpheme or a suffix, and it's also added to guelas. Next, Emmon Bach says the little word see itself shows this. Other forms of the word express different conditions. So another phrase you might hear pretty commonly is sasuela, which means, here he says, are you okay? So I'm going to switch my view here because I want to add a little bit more. So I'm going to copy and paste this. One thing that's missing here is an accent mark. So when you see these little dashes, little slanted dashes on top of certain vowels, that is an accent marker. So this one is missing an accent marker. So this would go here. Oops. So this is an accent marker that goes on top of this A because we're accenting the first syllable of this word. So wela has two syllables. We, la. So that's where you'll see accent marks, is in any word that has more than one syllable. Sus does not have an accent marker because it's only one syllable, so it doesn't need an acute accent marker. So I'm just adding a little bit more, just separating this with brackets. So this is saswela, and this means are you okay? But this A at the end is very much like susa or susha. So this is also a yes or no question. So that's why I wanted to use word here so that I could modify this text. And this gives you a better idea of what's being said here. Saswela, are you okay? Yes or no. That would be a more accurate way of describing what that means. So he goes on to explain the S on the end of the first word is what expresses you. So before he was talking about the word see, so that's the default word, the question word. If you're not referring to someone specifically in the first word, you use see. But if you are referring to somebody, then you change the end of the word. So you change it to es, which means you. It's just kind of like u, or it's kind of like us. But it's actually, instead of the u, it's an e or an sound instead. So this us means you. So this basically means question you. Well basically means, actually I'm going to go back to my Word document because there's something I forgot to change there. I would say well means, is there anything wrong? I would say this is a more accurate explanation or definition. So if somebody says saswela, that means, is there anything wrong with you? Yes or no. I would say that's a more accurate description of that phrase, of that question. And then he goes on further to explain the word guelas shows a simple example of how words are built. So it consists of the root guel. Again, he's missing that little raised W. This says gale, but it should say guel. Guel. So G, small raised W, A-I-L. And when you see a word that ends with a dash here, that means it's not complete. It's a root word. And word building suffix as. So guelas is made up of this root word guel and then the suffix as. The use of suffixes and so on for marking complex words is discussed in Appendix Building Highs the Words. So that's going to come up a little bit later on. For the first point, the order of words, let's look at a couple more examples. So he uses some examples of these words used in Haistakila. So this sentence here would read, Dukwil ke he masahe ke sakyahe. Dukwul ke he masahe ke sakyahe. And this means the chief sees the grizzly. And there's an accent marker missing. There should be an accent over this first A in sakyahe. And there's also one missing here. So actually I'm going to copy and paste this and then change my view in my broadcasting software. So again, remove the capital letter. So this is he masahe. So he mas. This first syllable is emphasized. So we need to put an acute accent on top of that I. And then we include one in the first A. And something that word does that I really don't like is it changes, it changes the letter I from lowercase to capital. So I'm going to, I think I'm just going to try and turn autocorrect off. Hopefully it'll stop it from doing that. So this means the chief sees the grizzly. Dukwul ke he masahe ke sakyahe. So that's the way it would look with the accent markers, the appropriate accent markers in the sentence. So he goes on to explain how this works. Here, the words occur in this order. So, see the chief, the grizzly. So, dukwul is see. Ke means the, but it also means away. So, it's describing something in terms of its location. So, it's not close to me, the person who's speaking. It's not close to you, the person who's listening. It's somewhere else. It's further away. And then chief is heitmas, and this ache also means away. So the away, chief away, and then ke also means the away, and then sa is grizzly bear, and ache also means away. So dukwul ke heitmasahe ke sa kyahe means see the chief away, the grizzly away. So it basically means the chief who is over there sees the grizzly who is further away. It's essentially what that means. So this is the normal word order for sentences like this in Isla. So this is what he was talking about before, where dukwul means to see. So it's a verb. So that's why it comes first in the sentence. So dukwul comes first because it's the verb in the sentence. It's the action word. In this respect, Isla is like a lot of other languages around the world, including Arabic and Irish. If I want to say a sentence like this, but about you, me, or us, I would have to say things like dukwul ke sa kyahe. And this would mean I see the grizzly. So this one, the first one means dukwul ke he masahe ke sa kyahe. So this one, in this sentence, the chief is the subject. So heitmas is the subject. Sach is the object. In this case, dukwulan, so you have dukwula, which means to see. That's the verb. This N is short for nugwa, and that means I. So that's the subject. So it gets attached to dukwula. So you have subject, you have coming after the verb. So dukwula, verb, N or I, subject, ke, which means the away, and then sa kyahe, grizzly away. So sometimes you'll see this N get attached to the end of a word, or sometimes you'll see the whole word nugwa. So you could hear dukwila nugwa, ke sa kyahe. And this is a little bit longer. So this really comes down to personal preference again. You'll find that a lot of things come down to the speaker's preference. So dukwila nugwa is a little bit longer to say, and it's also longer to type out or write. Whereas dukwilan is shorter because you're cutting off like the last part of the word. So in this case, the word nugwa, there's two things happening. It's being reduced down to one letter, and it's being used as a suffix. So you could say dukwilan, or you could say dukwila nugwa, and then ke sa kyahe. So either way you say this, it would mean the same thing. It's just different ways of writing and expressing, I see the grizzly over there. So if we change this N, or if we change nugwa to su, S-U, then it becomes dukwila su ke sa kyahe. And this means you see the grizzly. So su means you. Dukwila su means see, you. Ke, the grizzly, or the away. Sa kyahe, grizzly away. So dukwilan, I see, or dukwila nugwa, I see. Dukwila su, you see. And then he has another example, dukwilanis kai sa kyahe. Dukwilanis kai sa kyahe means we, including you, see the grizzly. So that we've added this nis. So this means us, and that means everybody that's here. If it was we excluding you, it would be dukwilanu. But this nis means everybody that's here. We're all included. We all see the grizzly. So if I want to say I don't see the grizzly, then I have to use the helping verb kyus or q at the beginning of the sentence, and the endings for who is seeing getting tacked onto that word. So it's a bit of a different procedure here, where we're seeing some different examples of the word structure. So this first one is kyun dukwil kai sa kyahe. Kyun dukwil kai sa kyahe. And this means I don't see the grizzly. If we said udsi'u dukwil kai sa kyahe, this would mean you don't see the grizzly. Or if you said udsi'u dukwil kai sa kyahe, this would mean he or she or they don't see the grizzly. So kyun means I don't. Udsi'u means you don't. Udsi'u means he or she or they don't. And then the appendix, grammatical endings, gives lists of the crucial endings for making sentences in isla. So here are some important ideas for understanding those lists. So the subject in sentence 2 is ke he masahe, which means the chief away. So the subject is the one who is doing or being what the verb expresses. If the subject is expressed by a pronoun, which is I, you, me, or he or she, then in isla you use an ending on the main or helping verb as in sentences 3 through 8. So the subject is hate must. And that's what's going to change when you change the subject. You're going to change that part there. In sentence 2, the object is sa kyahe, or sa. The object is the one who is affected by the verb. Just as with subjects, pronominal ideas for objects, him, her, them, or you, are expressed by endings on the verb. Next, he talks about oblique objects. So some verbs require that their objects be marked by the expression "hase" or the ending "s" on the previous word. So again, this is something that you might see or hear depending on the speaker. So you might hear "hase" or you might hear or see the letter "s" added on to something to connect words. And we might compare this to the use of in English, which occurs in a wide variety of situations. So hase or s, when it's reduced to just one letter, it means by, of, or about. That's essentially what that word means. So it can be used by itself, or it can be reduced down to the letter s and added to a letter and used as a suffix. So in possession, this refers to expressions like his, her, their, or an example would be like Harry's friend. So possession makes use of the same ending of the letter s or full word hase that is used for oblique objects. So those are some examples of how words will change depending on the context that it's being used in. So that's a pretty good explanation so far of very common phrases that you might hear in the Haida language and how they will change depending on how they're being used. So I've been going for about half an hour here, going on to 40 minutes. I wasn't sure exactly how long it was going to take me to walk through all of these. Let's see here. Looks like we've gone through 2 pages so far. I think what I'm going to do here is I'm going to end it at this point, and I'll do another live stream some other time, hopefully within the next day or two, and pick up from where we left off. So hopefully this gives you a good introduction and gives you a better idea of how the language works. And as I said before, I'm hoping within the next day or two that I'll be able to do another live stream and continue on. So that's it for now. Thank you for watching. I'll say, since it's evening now, I'll say Eiks Ganuth. Good night.